Good evening, everyone. Welcome to GSV Lab's first virtual pitch in place. My name is Alec Wright. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at GSV Labs, and I'm really excited to get to spend some time with you tonight. First, discussing the trends and the realities of investing in venture in the COVID age. And then second, hearing from an incredible portfolio of startups that are transforming the future of work. And let me apologize, we're a little bit behind schedule. We had some technical difficulties getting the live stream going, which really speaks to the need for a lot of these future of work technologies, and that we're really on the first generation of making virtual connection kind of seamless and interactive. So first and foremost, let me welcome everyone. Those of you on the West Coast, good afternoon. On the East Coast, good evening. And those globally, welcome whatever time it may be in your home. It's amazing to have you here. Before we get started with the panel, I want to give 30 seconds of background on GSV Labs and what to expect here tonight. GSV Labs is an innovation platform based in Silicon Valley. We've supported over 800 startups since 2015. That community's raised about $600 million. And today we have over 150 startups in our innovation centers in Silicon Valley and in Boston, and pretty soon in Pittsburgh, London, and in other emerging innovation hotspots around the world. But we're not just physical. As is increasingly important in the age of COVID, we are online. And we are focused on providing all of the resources that startups and founders need to grow their business anywhere, anytime through GSV Passport, our online innovation center. We have over 18,000 members from over 100 countries that are interacting with dozens of corporate partners, hundreds of investors, expert mentors, and accessing a pool of nearly $1 million in discounted tools and services. And now, on Passport, you're watching Pitch in Place, which is our first virtual pitch night and chance to really interact and connect, on the platform now that we're in lockdown and not able to congregate in GSV Labs innovation centers. The winner tonight will win a $2,000 grand prize and 2 free memberships to GSV Labs for a year. And then all of you audience members will be voting and selecting a People's Choice Award, who will be getting a $500 cash prize. And so, this is a great reminder: vote, rate, comment. All of this is available directly under the window where you're watching the live stream in the startup pitches, especially if you're on the Passport platform. Make sure to vote and engage. We really want to hear from you. But before we get started in the pitch, I want to give a quick shout out and thank you to our partner Ripen, who is a firm that helps startups maximize R&D tax credits to drive non-dilutive cash into the business to help them accelerate their R&D and kind of their innovation opportunities. And without the support of folks like Ripen, these type of events wouldn't be possible. And with that, we'll get started. It's my pleasure to ultimately introduce Nikhil Sinha, who's the CEO of GSV Labs, and will be moderating our panel, Venture in the Age of COVID-19. We're joined by 3 both incredible panelists and judges. These individuals will be first sharing their perspective on investing today, and then ultimately judging and interacting with the founders as they present. We have Julia Stiglitz, the partner from GSV Ventures, Jeff Williams, a partner from Interlock Partners, and finally, Perry Wu, a general partner from the AI Fund. And with that, Nikhil, excited to hear from the panel.
A special welcome to our judges and panelists, Julia, Perry, and Jeff. We are now nearly 2 months into the full-blown coronavirus crisis here in the US, and the economic and social damage has already been severe. We have about 2/3 of the country now under shelter-in-place orders, and nearly 25 million people applying for first-time unemployment claims over the past 6 weeks. The pitches we'll hear tonight will focus on one of the important outcomes of this crisis, which is the growth and acceleration of remote working. But in this panel today with Jeff and Perry and Julia, we'll get the opportunity to explore the implications of the crisis on venture activity and startup activity in general. And there's already clear evidence that the coronavirus crisis is impacting the sector significantly. Venture investments from around the world dropped by about 17% in Q1 of this year from Q4 of 2019. So within the space of just 3 months, and early venture activity in particular dropped by about 23% over the same period. And this despite the fact that at least in the US, we did not really feel the full impact of the crisis until the second half of March. So we expect that the impact of the crisis on venture activity and funding in Q2 is going to be particularly bad. Crunchbase estimates that somewhere between 5,000 to 7,000 startups that were raising funds in this period are going to immediately be impacted by the shortage of investments. Let me begin then by turning to the panelists to get their feedback into the state of venture investing and venture fundraising as well. And in the course of doing that, would love for them to tell us more about their background and the funds and their investment strategy. So we begin with you, Jeff. Thanks for joining us from Dallas. Tell us about Interlock, tell us about your investing strategy, and tell us about the changes that have taken place since the advent of the crisis.
Yeah, thank you, Nikhil. And I guess good evening and good day to everybody. So my background is about 20 years in venture capital, raised 7 or 8 funds over that period of time. For the most part, it's been all early stage, mostly software, although early in my career, grew up in the hardware days of telco, which Dallas was famous for at one point in time, or Texas in general. And so our current fund is almost like a friends and family fund. It's focused on making Series A investments in companies across the US, so we have no geographic restrictions. We are very kind of hands-on investors. The team has got a lot of experience as operators, entrepreneurs, and I know a lot of venture funds will say they're hands-on investors, which a lot of them are, but we are very involved in our companies, and that's what's brought this current team together as opposed to my previous funds team. So we really like to work with our companies and get involved. We are, to your point, Nikhil, we were on the heels of starting Fund 2 capital raise in the early part of March, which has been put on pause at the moment. And so we are going to have a creative structure, if you will, over the next 3 to 6 months of warehousing deals ourselves so that we could continue to invest and put money to work behind young, bright entrepreneurs. And so our plan is to keep going and not hit the brakes, but hit the pause button temporarily. So, and in terms of, the current market, I'll be brief because I know everybody has their time here, but, as a person that's done this for 20 years, I saw the bubble burst and the post bubble. I saw 2008, 2009, which is a different economic situation, if you will, and now COVID. And so what we did at Interlock is we put together we basically refreshed our 2008, 2009 game plan where we have a small portfolio. And so we have 8 companies in our current portfolio, so it's a little bit easier for us to manage. But what we did was we returned to capital efficiency, and we really curtailed, obviously, an abundance of spending in areas that were really kind of maybe growth oriented or maybe on the edge, and really bring that back to, supporting the team, trying our best to avoid layoffs and rifts and furloughs and things like that, and trying to keep the team together. Again, these are early stage companies. I would think across our portfolio, the average firm probably has about 18 employees in it. So they're relatively small. But return to capital efficiency and trying to really preserve cash, it's no secret. That's what we should do in this situation. But then I would think, for most of our companies, it's trying to get through 2020 and in the first part of 2021 as we try to figure out what this means kind of long-term, what the impacts are going to be. And so that's kind of how we look at it at the current moment.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Perry, let me turn to you and give us a little bit of background of the iFund and how the current situation has changed your thinking about investments and investing strategy.
Sure. Perry Wu. I've been in in venture for, I don't know, probably sort of same number of years as Jeff, but I've spent half of it as an entrepreneur. Started 5 companies, 2 have gone public, and sold my last company not too long ago. But I've also spent the other half of my career as a venture capitalist. Worked at Axel Partners, Bedrock Capital, and Com Ventures, and now at AI Fund, which is sort of a good mix for me. AI Fund is a startup studio, so we fund entrepreneurs at their earliest phases. Honestly, it doesn't matter to us whether idea comes from us or from the entrepreneur, but we help really act as a co-founder sounding board for those companies. And we'll probably do 80% of our deals would be companies that sort of are really sort of built from within, and then probably 20% from companies that are farther along and typical venture funding in those companies. And so we'll do anything all the way up through Series A, maybe even sometimes a Series B. AI Fund's a fairly new fund. Was founded by Andrew Ng, who's kind of considered one of sort of the preeminent AI authorities in the world, and he started Coursera, which I think is where Julie may have come from. He also he's a professor at Stanford, and he's helped start the AI departments at Google and other sort of notable companies. So we do have a focus on AI. I'd say in terms of how I think about the environment, I think it's still hard to say what's going to happen. I think, like Jeff, I've been through now 2 of these. This will be the 3rd time I've seen the market, kind of crumble or crater. I'd say the first market was just everything was overvalued. I'd say the second time this happened, we had sort of a balance sheet issue, too much debt in the market, and this one's interesting because it's, I think, a P&L issue. We have top line is disappearing before our eyes. So it's hard to say how enterprises will react to that. It's hard to say how consumers will react to that. But I do think, from my standpoint, the companies that got hit the hardest during those last big recessions were the companies that had really, overraised capital and gotten far along in their growth cycle. A lot of them tended to have difficulty matching those valuations with future investors, and so there was a period of time that occurred just to recalibrate valuations on those companies. On a positive note, on the early stage side, people kept funding. So I think if you're pitching here and with an early stage company, you're probably in a pretty good situation in terms of not being overvalued or taking too much capital. And I think most firms are going to continue to fund seed Series A deals without hesitation. I think you probably need to operate with some, from a conservative standpoint, but at the same time, I do think there'll be some great companies built during this time period, and I think there'll be a lot of probably more opportunities now during sort of the mass chaos versus traditional time. So I'm pretty positive. I think for AI Fund, we're sort of business as usual.
Well, that's great to hear, because I know that a lot of the founders that are on our call today are going to be relieved to hear that investors like you continue to be active and looking at new investments. Julia, would love to get your take on the environment, and particularly with GSV Ventures' focus on talent and edtech. What are the trends that you're seeing in that sector, and what changes are you making to your investment strategy?
Great, thanks, Nikhil. It's great to be here. Nikhil and I worked together at Coursera, where I also worked with Andrew Ng. So it's great to be on this panel. I am a partner at GSV Ventures. We invest exclusively in the education and talent market. I've been here about 2 years. In our first fund, we invested in companies like Coursera and Andela and Handshake, Pluralsight, to name a few, and then are now on our second fund. Education as a category is a little bit different. It's counter-cyclical. In the last crisis in 2008, you saw a real spike in higher education enrollments. It went up by about 16%. And so you have this sort of counter-cyclical trend coupled with the fact that 1.6 billion students and teachers have been forced online overnight, and there's a real surge in demand for digital learning. And so we're seeing actually a large number of our startups see real increases in terms of users and in terms of revenue. Coursera's new users are up about 15x. They signed up about 10 million new learners in March alone. ClassDojo, another one of our portfolio companies that's focused on the K-12 space, has seen about a 5x increase in learners and then about a 5x increase in engagement. So it's essentially become the plumbing of schools and how teachers are communicating with students. So a lot of our startups are in a really fortunate position to be able to support people and support learners through this crisis, particularly the ones that are B2C companies. I think on the other side, on the sort of talent side, is where we're seeing just like a real softening. So anything that has to do with recruiting and job placement is obviously struggling right now. And we do have a few of those companies in our portfolio as well. The underlying, one of the questions that we get asked a lot is that we're seeing this surge in digital learning, but will it all revert back to where it was before, or potentially go back even worse as some learners are not having the best experience as their professors are teaching online for the first time? We think that what we're going to see is just an acceleration of trends that were there before, and that it won't go back to where it was before. That there's all sorts of reasons why people are moving online, and that will continue after the crisis. And as a result of that, we've actually decided to increase the size of our fund. So we are still fundraising. It's slower, but we are raising a bigger fund than we were planning to before the crisis.
That's great. Great to hear that the sector is growing and there continues to be top line increase in some areas, where in other areas we continue to see businesses under pressure. Julia, what advice would you have for the founders who have dialed in today or who come to you? How do they raise funds in a virtual environment? What if, particularly if they're raising first time investments, how should they be trying to, and what will investors look for when companies come to them to raise money?
So, I mean, I think it's the same things that we were looking for before. So looking at the people and the product and their traction and the potential. So looking at the same things that were before. I mean, what's harder is you can't meet people in person. And especially in the early stage, so much of what you're betting on is the entrepreneur. And it's much harder to have that sort of connection and then really get to know the entrepreneur and the entrepreneur, get to know the team in an online environment. And so I think that's I think that's a challenge for entrepreneurs. So the companies that we've seen, we've had a couple companies that have raised post-COVID, and most of them had pre-existing relationships with investors, and they went out to those investors that they already knew. So I would focus on those investors first that have already met you, that have gotten to know you a little bit, and where you might have already built a little bit of a relationship.
Sorry, Perry. In the AI sector, are you seeing trends in particular areas? And similarly, as if founders are coming to you now for advice in terms of the kinds of companies that they should be founding in this recession, what advice would you have for them?
Yeah, I don't, to me, AI is going to be pervasive. So it's hard to say that there's any one particular area to sort of look at. Obviously, AI has been sort of touted as having a significant impact potentially on automating people and the tasks that they do. So certainly, people intensive operations is sort of obviously one ROI, but honestly, we see people with so many different innovative ideas that are utilizing AI in different ways. So I think just figuring out really the seams of where there's transitions in the market or inflection points and understanding what the problems are probably, from my standpoint, more important. And then obviously, if you're going to build something, you should consider how AI is sort of instrumental to your core competencies that you build as an organization. I just think every company in the future will have that as a core competency. In terms of how things are different, for entrepreneurs raising capital and advice, it's just because we're shelter in place doesn't mean that you can sit idle. And I'd say, honestly, I actually think people are probably a little bit more receptive now to, getting an email from someone than they were before, and opening it up or spending time, on a Zoom call versus meeting in person is so much easier. So I'm going through due diligence right now with 3 possible investments, and I'd say we're probably moving quicker because it's just easier to communicate, and you don't have to come to our office and find a slot. I mean, I feel free to text someone on the spot and then immediately talk to them if I need to ask them questions. So I think there are some nice advantages. Yeah, obviously we don't get to see the person in person, but from our standpoint, we're still going to make investments. We're still going to place bets on people, and yeah, I think we get a pretty good sense of them just by communicating with them more online, more frequently than, say, fewer meetings in person.
Thanks, Harry. Jeff, you talked about warehousing deals in readiness for raising your second fund and making those investments. What are the characteristics of the deals that you're looking for that you think are sort of worth investing in right now in that sort of warehousing structure?
Well, for us, the presumption is most of the deals that we look at under the warehouse structure will roll into Fund 2. So that has to map to our Fund 2 strategy, which is what I described earlier. So we continue to look at companies across a broad set of categories. Like a lot of venture funds, we only invest in companies that we think we can add significant value, as I mentioned before. And so I think, we're big believers in the Industrial Revolution process and the future of work and everything. You can't ignore that at the current time. And so, like Perry mentioned, our deal flow now is, we can't even keep up with, to be totally honest with you. We are business as usual. And we continue to try to do the best we can in the current environment with Zoom meetings and the like, and working with as many entrepreneurs as possible. Dallas is a little bit different market, and even Texas is a little bit different market than obviously the Valley and New York. And so if the deal doesn't fit our profile, we try to help them locate a source of capital. And in our market in particular, there's a tremendous amount of family offices that are very active in doing more direct deals probably now than ever before. And so we're seeing a lot of sort of co-investment and syndicate opportunities to help companies get funded, and even in this environment, on more of a direct basis as through a fund structure. So, but for us, it is business as usual, and these deals have to roll into Fund 2 for us.
Great, thanks. We have a question from the audience. Ajay Jotwani wants to know, he says, we're getting a lot of traction and proof of concept opportunities. Our challenge is closing business on Zoom. The question for the panelists is, are early stage startups closing deals without any in-person meetings, especially on the B2B enterprise side. Let me start with you, Perry, and get your inputs on that.
Yeah, I think it's tougher. Obviously people are operating a little bit more cautiously. So what's sort of been interesting is that I think everyone's trying to figure out how they operate in this new environment. So I see a lot of companies just shifting to healthier customer bases, as opposed to just sticking with their existing pipeline. I think you have to really ask yourself whether those companies that you're selling to are going to be hampered or not. So obviously, if you're selling to retail companies, there's certainly a rude awakening that even if they say they're going to buy products, chances are they've frozen their budgets and they're just trying to figure out how to survive. They're even the ones that are big and healthy, they're probably spending the majority of their time restructuring, debt and leases and whatnot to just survive through this period. So I've seen folks just completely shift on a dime to a healthier space and kind of restart the pipeline. And even then, closing is obviously difficult, but I also think in this time, strategic partners seem to be a lot more, or a lot less resistant or more interested in figuring out how to partner with folks because they probably traditionally have not really thought about, the virtual world as much, or it hasn't been critical to their strategy, and all of a sudden it is. So I'd say, having other big players behind you sort of helping close deals is obviously a bonus, but I think, yeah, the reality is it's just going to be harder right now, and it might get harder because we haven't really seen the impact on companies, their budgets for this year and for next year. But I would imagine going into next year, as sort of people start planning for the following year, budgets are going to tighten. And I think, as sort of Jeff alluded to, be conservative as opposed to growth oriented. If you're sort of in a place where you have to survive, you can't get back those months. So best to make the hard decisions now, see how the market plays out. But honestly, people are going to close deals. It's just going to take a little more effort, and companies are going to be a little more hesitant to pull the trigger on stuff. So I don't know if there's any real remedy to that. You just got to work harder.
Yeah, Nikhil, just add one thing to that. I think Julia said this earlier. We've got, as you know, an education company. It's already been online pre-COVID, and like Julia mentioned earlier, it's just going gangbusters right now. What will return to normalcy be for them? Even at that point, they're still a nice, healthy, growing company. So I think it's going to depend too by industry, right? We obviously know hospitality is going to take a while, retail is going to take a while, anything in transportation is going to take a while. So, but I think Perry's correct. I think people should expect things just to take longer.
Yeah, and just on that point, Julia, last question to you. On the B2B side, clearly your portfolio companies on the B2C side are seeing just immense growth right now as people are turning online for education resources. Is that translating to the B2B business as well, or are we beginning to see a tightening of budgets on the enterprise side that's sort of balancing out the need for them to go and find new online resources?
Yeah, it's been interesting. We actually thought that our enterprise learning companies were going to be more hit by this crisis. But basically what we're seeing is that with whole companies online, they also need whatever learning and development that they have to be online. And right now, that sort of online learning portion of their budget is actually relatively small compared to their in-person. And so they're protecting, and in some cases even growing, that online portion of their learning budget. So it's, but those, I would say those are for more established companies that have a customer base. like the customer base is holding and in some cases growing. I think what is hard, even for learning companies within the enterprise space, is breaking into the new companies. Just, there's a lot that people have on their plate. The person that they're selling into might have kids. Like, there's lots of things that are going on that make it difficult to get somebody's attention, and to get a new deal, particularly if it's a larger deal.
Well, great. Well, thank you, all three of you. And again, thank you for the work that you're going to do the next hour or so in judging what is a really interesting set of companies. We have at GSV Labs have the Pioneer pitch competitions every month with a different theme. Companies from around the country and sometimes around the world apply to pitch in these competitions, and then we select the ones that we think would be the most interesting for our investors as well as for our audience. So we've got 9 terrific companies talking about remote work. And essentially at this point, that topic is the same as the future of work in many ways, as we begin to see remote working fully now becoming integrated into the work environment. So with that, let me hand it over to Alec as we start the competition section of the evening.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nikhil, and thank you again to Julia and Jeff and Perry, and the perspectives that they shared, as well as the questions they're going to throw at our founders shortly, and the insight they'll share through the judging process. A quick reminder to the audience: if you are on the GSV Passport platform, you can vote and judge these companies. You can comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and there will be an opportunity in the Q&A session to ask 1 or 2 audience questions of each founder. So make sure to take advantage of it. And at the same time, just to understand what's coming next, we will be doing one pitch at a time. You'll be seeing a very brief, about 3-minute pre-recorded pitch with the founder and their deck, and then we'll be dropping into a live Q&A session with the judges and the founder, and then ultimately a chance for you to get any of your questions in front of the founder as well. And so we're really excited. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our first startup, which is BidOps. They're building a cloud-based sourcing enablement platform built for procurement professionals by procurement professionals that enable them to manage the entire procurement and sourcing process seamlessly, virtually, and in a distributed fashion.
Hello, everyone. My name is Edmund Zagrin, and I am founder and CEO of BidOps. We're a sourcing AI SaaS platform, and we're changing the way that businesses partner with their suppliers. We are disrupting a $9 billion market for procurement solutions and analytics, and I'm excited to share with you a little bit about how the progress has been. Also, thanks to the GSV team for organizing. Great event. The problem that we're solving for is supplier negotiations are expensive and painful. The data that you need to know to do these right is trapped in long email chains that creates communication bottlenecks and ultimately slows things down and makes them more frustrating. That means that businesses aren't doing the negotiations they need to do, and ultimately they're paying more than they should due to lack of competition. COVID-19 increases the cost of these bottlenecks. We've seen supply chains disrupted, sourcing teams working from home, and at a time when saving money has never been more important, it's also never been harder. Our solution is AI price recommendations that enable better quotes faster. These price recommendations are delivered inside our CRM-like web application. It's very user-friendly, very delightful. And what happens is that first, the supplier logs in, they see a quote generated for them, they can modify it, get dynamic feedback to get to a best and final offer. And then BidOps actually supports the life cycle of the buyer-supplier relationship. getting transactional busy work like collecting documents and answering questions out of the way so that both parties can focus on what matters most, building a good relationship. Recently, a Midwestern manufacturing company used BitOps to run a bid in 4 days for valves, and the savings was over 20%. The assistant purchasing manager at this company said, "I am pleasantly surprised, almost floored by the outcome of this bid." And that's why BitOps has been recognized for excellence. We were recently recognized as Best Startup at Digital Procurement World. Spend Matters named BitOps a top 50 provider to watch, and Dr. Eloise Epstein, head of digital at AT Kearney, has called BitOps technology truly revolutionary. Customers trust BitOps to run global supplier negotiations, and you'll see that we're deployed globally. So there are people all over the world that are using BitOps to do their sourcing events and actually to manage their mission-critical supplier relationships. Our team has decades of domain experience in strategic sourcing and enterprise AI, and we're focused on building solutions that are very user-friendly and align all parties in what can sometimes be a tense business process. So if any of this sounded exciting, please throw us a vote and reach out to me, edmund@bitops.com. Looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much.
Wonderful. Edmund, thank you so much for the pitch. Do we have any questions from the judges to learn a little bit more about BitOps?
Yeah, a couple questions. Edmund, who at the end of the day, assuming you succeed, who are you competing against, or who are the losers from your success as a result of your success?
I mean, the main solution that people are using today to solve for this problem is email and spreadsheets. I don't think Microsoft at the end of the day is going to lose sleep over people using those tools less for this use case. There are companies like SAP Ariba and Zycus that have focused on the strategic sourcing space from an ERP integration perspective. And ultimately, we see the market share just growing in every direction. And the future of this space is really purpose-built solutions. So looking at a business process and creating a delightful user experience that just enables people to get the outcome they want faster.
And I know Ariba is sort of the big 800-pound gorilla. Do you run into them often? And how many deals have you won head-to-head against those folks?
So just for context, Ariba, founded in the late 90s, very successful IPO, incredible market presence. And I would say that, we share customers with Ariba. We don't directly compete with them. If you're looking to spend some millions of dollars with a solution that integrates with your ERP system, and you want a company that's been around for more than 10 years, Ariba or Zycus or one of these other solutions is definitely your go-to. If you want a best-of-breed AI solution founded, within the last 5 years, we're the solution for that. And in a lot of cases, it makes sense to use BitOps at first for a specific category or department, see the savings, see the results, and then grow it from there.
And what do your customers look like?
Our customers are primarily large enterprises. So they're manufacturing operations. Our largest customer to date is BASF. So they use us across a range of categories around the world. But we also work with, groups like Dover Chemical, Emerald Textiles, and just kind of a range of other manufacturing groups.
Edmund, what's your revenue model?
We are simple SaaS subscription. We charge based on the category. So we ask people to say how much they're spending in a particular category and then to sign that category up. We don't charge based on the number of seats or anything like that.
Edmund, can you share a little bit more about your background and what inspired you to start this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was a procurement consultant, really helping people design business processes around supplier selection. So everything from the phases of a negotiation, the qualification process, really looking into the analytics around total cost of ownership. So ways beyond price to measure the value of a supplier relationship to a business or an organization or a government. And came across a number of different solutions that I thought were, in many cases, super powerful, but were challenging to use. The interface might be kind of a bit out of date. And what I realized in this process is that there's a huge opportunity in actually solving a deeper problem in the misalignment between buyers and suppliers, which is ultimately around setting expectations at the outset of the process. So BidOps is the only solution where buyers are in a position to go first in a negotiation. And that kind of signature move of going first and setting the expectations was really what drove our team to create this company.
And real quickly, thank you so much for that, Edmund. One question from the audience. We got a question about what type of goods can I source on the BidOps platform, and what are some of the most popular categories that you find yourself supporting?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as long as there is a standard unit of measure, our AI model will run its forecast. It doesn't work in the cases of statement of work. So we definitely see more of it as a product for buying physical goods and materials, specialty chemicals, metals, and anything that really goes into a inventory parts section of a factory, pipes, valves, fittings, screws, fasteners, that type of stuff, are all popular categories.
Wonderful. Well, Edmund, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We're now going to move on to our second pitch. We're excited to welcome Jorge Rios from BridgeFi. BridgeFi is a messaging application which creates a mesh network to send messages over Bluetooth, even when you don't have internet connectivity.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jorge, founder at BridgeFi. I'm sure you can think of many times in which you found yourself without access to internet or phone services. And we don't realize it, but the lack of a way of communicating can prevent social and economic growth and even be the difference between life and death. And no, not everybody has access to the internet. 40% of the world will still remain offline by 2025. That's more than 4 billion people. And when we don't have access to the internet, we can't use mobile apps. This means we can't make payments, we can't receive natural disaster alerts, or stay in touch with loved ones. And this not only affects users, but it also affects the companies that make these apps. So we built BridgeFi. BridgeFi makes mobile apps work without the internet. BridgeFi is software that we license to companies and is very easily integrated into mobile apps. Once an app has adopted BridgeFi, their millions of users can keep using those apps when they don't have access to the internet. This improves user experience and increases revenue for companies. Imagine a teacher being able to share a lecture with her students, or imagine being able to be rescued after a natural disaster because you could send out a distress signal. Imagine keeping people engaged during sports and music events, or street merchants being able to process payments. We can make all of this happen without anybody having access to the internet, all while generating user data through contact tracing. That's a solid goal for companies, and the possibilities are endless. The technology is very simple to understand. Phones connect using Bluetooth and create chains of devices called mesh networks. These networks can cover huge distances and an unlimited amount of devices without a single one having to have access to the internet. And our technology is vastly superior to any other because most companies that do contact tracing or offline messaging can only reach devices near you. when BridgeFi can cover devices around you and those devices around them, etc. And imagine just how much more information we can collect. Our market is huge. We've identified 1.3 million apps that are compatible with the BridgeFi software, and that leads to a serviceable market of around 13 billion. Companies already buy many products that improve their metrics and spend around $750,000 each year on them. In the past few months, we already partnered up with more than 85 companies that are actively integrating BridgeFi into their apps, including famous YouTubers, social media apps, and governments. And to test our own software, we built and launched our own mobile messaging app, and in a matter of months, we got to more than 1.6 million organic downloads. And so we can safely say that our technology has already been tested and validated by real people in real situations. We partner up with small developers and events on a monthly basis, and with larger companies, we do annual subscriptions. We charge based on the amount of users that they have, and we are seeing signups grow by 23% with no sales or marketing budgets yet. BridgeFi is headquartered in San Francisco and is currently made up of 4 people. Key members include Luis, our CMO, Julian, our CTO, and myself, the CEO, and key investors include BizStone, Twitter founder, and Alchemist Accelerator. We raised $750K as our pre-seed round, and we're currently raising our seed round to hire the rockstar team that we need to keep building innovative products and scale growth. And we firmly believe that a lack of way of communicating can prevent people from thriving. But by using the power of smartphones billions of people already have in their pockets, we can leverage accessible and affordable technologies to help people and companies grow. We're not trying to replace the internet. We're working to be there for people when the internet isn't. Thank you.
And the need for security in your platform.
Sure. So we actually allow companies to integrate and keep the security layers that they already have on their app. So just to throw an example out there, let's say that we integrate with Facebook Messenger. They already have state-of-the-art end-to-end encryption, etc. So that doesn't really affect, it's not really affected when you integrate BridgeFi because it's the same security protocols that you're already using, and you simply mount BridgeFi on top of them.
Okay, thank you.
So you so it's consumer facing, right? So they install the product themselves, but then enterprises are paying you for what are the enterprises paying you for?
No, like I mentioned, we license the technology to companies. They integrate the software development kit SDK into the apps, and with a simple update, you and I could use those apps when we didn't have access to data.
I see. So basically it's a are you charging on an API basis, or is it a platform-based fee for every application company?
We charge based on the amount of users that an app has. So basically, it's a different pricing per user if you are a 5,000 person event or if you're a 5 million person.
How many application companies are on your platform?
Right now, actually, we just passed 90, and hopefully the first ones that are going to be of a considerable size are going to be launching within the next 2 or 3 months already.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit more about the motivation of the companies, those 90 companies, like why they're signing up with you and what they're expecting to get, and then what objections you've heard from companies that you haven't closed?
Definitely. So basically, the reasons why companies love us is because we actually increase the amount of time that people spend using their apps. And as we all know, the more time that I use Facebook, the more time that I use WhatsApp and Uber, et cetera, it's the more the increased revenue for these companies. So we actually let them reach markets that were previously impenetrable. For example, concert crowds, for example, people traveling abroad, natural disasters. So those are just some examples of groups of people, communities, situations in which people can't use mobile apps, but now they can. And just a few perks is that we decrease server loads, and we also, at the same time that we make the apps work without the internet, we also generate data through contact tracing. So basically, people don't really want to use contact tracing apps because basically you have to have them open, and the sole purpose is for NGOs and health organizations and governments to actually be able to know your patterns and be able to stem viruses like COVID-19. But if we give people a reason to use these apps more and have them open, like texting, dating, sharing your location, receiving ads, etc., then it increases engagement and at the same time increases the amount of data that we generate. Pushback from companies, that's a good question. Usually, for example, Twitter, we are on their roadmap, but we won't be integrated in the next 12 months. It would be after 12 months. So when it's larger companies, we need to be patient.
Great, thank you.
And do you have any file size limitations if you're going to use this in more of an enterprise format? Do you have any restrictions on the file size?
We are unfortunately restricted by whatever bandwidth Bluetooth and Wi-Fi Direct have at any given point. So basically, we keep improving our technology. We make it faster. We make it more versatile, etc. But we will always be limited by what Bluetooth allows. Having said this, Bluetooth already allows for transferring images, transferring text, ads, triggering your phone. Like if you're the Red Cross, you want phones around you to light up the flash or to emit a sound. We can do all of that. The only things that we are still incapable of doing because of Bluetooth limitations are live streaming. But as technologies improve, we improve with them.
Thank you so much, Jorge. One quick question from the audience. Do you need a certain critical mass of users in an area for the platform to work effectively, or what's required from an infrastructure perspective?
No, actually, it can work with only 2 people. I actually use BridgeFi with my wife in the middle of the ocean in a cruise trip, and it worked beautifully. Or if you have, for example, in Hong Kong, we had 98,000 people using it at the same time on the streets, and it also worked beautifully. So there's at least 2, and there is no max.
Very exciting. Well, thank you so much for your time. Great to hear about BridgeFi. We'll be transitioning now into the next pitch.
Thank you very
From her boss's perspective, Erin seemed to be doing very well working remotely. She was a star performer at the organization, she got her deliverables in on time, and she built processes to help the team through this difficult crisis. But then he noticed something and just had to ask, "What's wrong with your skin?" After weeks of quarantine, it looked like she was developing a rash on her face. He was absolutely blindsided when she broke down in tears, explaining that her life outside of work was falling apart. She was seemingly trapped in her room because she felt uncomfortable with her roommates inviting guests over. She had no family close by to support her and was terrified of losing her job. At the end, her productivity was based in fear, and it was burning her out. It took Erin getting a skin condition for her boss to finally notice that she was struggling. I mean, too many organizations think they have successfully transitioned to an effective work-from-home strategy without understanding the employee's full experience. To their surprise, when the COVID restrictions lift, their top talent like Erin will leave. At the end of the day, your employees are your business. Their experience is your customer's experience. And if you are looking to traditional employee engagement platforms for a solution, you're going to miss opportunities.
And honestly, that's because these traditional employee engagement solutions are no more than glorified survey forms that are delivered through emails at a predetermined cadence. This clumsy and frankly irritating method of delivery, you're hoping that you ask the right people or that the right people will respond at the time that you ask and that the problems and your cadence correspond. But at Forgent, our feedback collection process asks for employee sentiment on a daily basis through a lightweight, non-intrusive pop-up that is built into the employee's workflow and avoids that cluttered inbox altogether. With that live feed on the employee's experience, we react to deviations from the norm using our chatbot to diagnose issues as they arise. The chatbot results generate a custom leadership training module using content from our Forgent library that really helps the leaders develop into the type of leaders that are best for their team.
And we are very excited to be the leaders of Team Forgent. We were incubated out of the Harvard Innovation Labs, and we are obsessed with building community. We have established ourselves as industry experts in this field, and we've had about 150 guests on our podcast. These are thought leaders, lead researchers, and practitioners. We've been doing trainings across the country, and like Alexander said, we've developed a repository of video content that we use to consult with our clients. We understand this industry inside and out, and we are executing on our vision of where it's heading.
And really, it's because we're laser focused on our target market, which is organizations with only 1 or 2 HR people and less than 150 employees inside the tech, professional services, and information sectors. Now, this total market size of those sectors is about 25 billion in the US alone. And our target market within that total market is about $1 billion. Again, within the US. Now, we are striving for an 8% market share to arrive at that 80 million ARR.
We're really excited about our traction to this point, especially since COVID-19. We have experienced a 4 times increase in lead generation and the demos that we are conducting. We have 4 or 5 clients who are ready to be onboarded in the next 2 weeks, and that's going to bring our active users to about 300.
So why now? Well, because frankly, COVID-19 pushed us into a forced virtual workforce. And according to Gallup, 60% of that now remote workforce, they want to stay remote. Well, when the COVID-19 crisis ends, there's going to be friction between those employees and employers, and the talent war will just begin. So use our platform and figure out how Erin's doing before she develops a skin rash and takes her top talent somewhere else.
Welcome back, everybody. We have an opportunity now to hear from Alexander, part of the leadership team at Forgent. Would any of our judges like to start off?
Sure. Hey, Alex. So I just wonder, I know engagement is important to people, but I do wonder, sort of in this day and age of tightening budgets, whether this is a gotta have product or a nice to have product. So I wonder, how do you convince someone? My sense is it's kind of a nice to have product. So how do you get deals closed? And have you found it sort of difficult in closing deals during this period?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I can definitely resonate with that initial pull towards it being a nice to have. The success that we've found as we talk with organizations, and like we mentioned in our video, have seen a big uptick in interest in the platform and onboarding in the last few weeks because of COVID, is because organizations are realizing that, hey, our organization is built on our people. If our people's experience isn't positive, we don't have, and if their people's experience isn't positive, then the customer experience isn't going to be positive. And since we're not in the office anymore, we have no way of knowing how are they experiencing work, or how are things going for them? Can we count on them? Are they being productive? What is going on with them, so that we can rely on them to better serve our clients? So if anything, the forced virtualization of the workforce has made this a need to have, because you have to have some way of understanding what's going on with your folks. Otherwise, you're on a ticking time bomb of turnover. And once the restrictions lift, it's going to be a tough uphill battle for folks as people leave, because they weren't treated very well during the hard times.
I'm just
Alex. Go ahead, Perry.
I was just curious, so that typically translates to how long your sales cycle is. Do you have any sense for? I know it's sort of early in your sales process, but do you have a guess for what the sales cycle is on this product, given your limited data so far?
Our limited data puts us at about 6 weeks from introduction, cold outreach, first conversations to onboarding with the organization.
So real quick, Alex,
Sure.
It seems like there's a lot of one-to-one action or activity here between the employer and the employee. What about a sort of a high-level action plan if you're selling into some of these enterprises, I guess with 150 or less, maybe small businesses? Mm-hmm. Does the platform create an actionable plan for management to look sort of holistically across our organization, say, we've got this issue, we need to support training here versus the skin situation, which may be a one-off. Is there a broader thought process behind the platform itself?
Great question. So the fundamental principles behind how we help cultivate that positive work experience is by being laser focused on the team. The reality of it is when you're at that top leadership level, typically, the leaders are able to take the information and build out their own sort of broad company-wide plan. And we're focused on those leaders, those managers who really may not be very good at leading, right? They promoted because of the top performer or because out of necessity, whatever the case may be. And that team, that team unit is really the building block of each organization. And so by focusing our leadership training modules on that team leader, we're able to more effectively create a behavior change at that leader level to create a positive teamwork environment, so that on the aggregate, the feel and the vibe and the experience of all the employees at the company is a positive one. But as far as creating like an executive action plan, no, that's not currently part of how we drive change.
So maybe take it one step further to Perry's question about sell this, so to speak, where the value is really received. How do you find that one team unit, if you will, that you described in each organization trying to sell this?
Say that one more time.
So if you're really focused on the team level, how do you go into presumably a small to medium business and sell your props at a much higher level?
Right. Because the pitch is all about, helping the executive team realize that, listen, you don't have the bandwidth to go on your own and deal with all of these things. You're relying on these team leaders and these managers to execute on the company vision, to create and foster that positive environment. So it's hey, executives, you have so much on your plate right now that you need to take care of your people, but it's got to be delegated to the managers that have the most impact on the employee's life on the day-to-day. Because at the end of the day, a line level and entry level employee versus the CEO, there's not a lot of daily contact. That individual employee, their experience is all based on the relationship with their manager. And so that's what we're saying. We're saying, listen, guys, if you want to create that positive change, you've got to make sure that your managers are empowered to build the organization that you want it to be.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit more about the competitive landscape, specifically like Culture Amp and Glint, some of the larger players, and how you see yourself as differentiated?
Yeah, great question. Culture Amp and Glint, they and all the other, almost all the other employee engagement platforms in that space are very focused on data collection and analytics at that executive level towards folks that have a high level of HR sophistication to understand this broad range of different employee engagement metrics and factors. And it gets very complicated, and it's all of their dashboards, all of their deliverables are really focused around providing information. Our biggest differentiating factors between those two are around the user's experience. How do we gather data from employees to get a substantially higher participation rate than our competitors? And then what do we do with the data? So on the one end, we see about a 98% participation within our organization across all the employees versus like a 65% for the Culture Amps or Glints of the world. And then instead of just giving information to folks, we provide those actionable steps for the managers to do something with the data instead of just having it.
Thank you.
So Alexander, a quick question from the audience. And you started to answer it with your last answer. Can you dive into the engagement metrics a little bit? How are people responding to being asked questions on a daily basis?
Certainly, that's a really good question. So and that actually speaks to this last element of being focused on the user's experience. The way that it's set up is we have it just as a notification that pops up on their web browser, and it's the same question every day. Okay, so that there's not a lot of redigesting and understanding, hey, something new, I'm being asked something different. It's a smiley face interaction. So they just click a smiley face and they move on. And so what we found is we're able to actually our platform becomes part of the daily cadence of an employee's workflow. And so when we're gathering data, we're actually able to have it on that real-time basis, because since we ask randomly throughout the day each day, and it's non-intrusive, really lightweight, doesn't take anything for the employee really to respond. We're able to get that feedback, that engagement data consistently.
Thanks a lot.
Sure.
And thank you again for the pitch and for answering the questions of these judges. I want to give a quick reminder to the audience. You can go and you can vote and rate these startups. You can comment both on YouTube and then do your voting on the Passport platform. And we'd really like to hear from you all. So thanks again, Alexander. And we'll get going on to our next startup. It's a real pleasure now to introduce Golden Hour, which is an all-in-one life management platform that helps people make more time and space for their goals and positive habits amidst their busy schedule.
Hi, my name is Karthi. I am the founder and CEO of Golden Hour, and we're on a mission to help people manage and master their lives. We live in a world today where most of us are faced with an endless barrage of events and errands and everything else. And a lot of us get sucked into this busy trap, and we fall into a pattern of just reactively handling the latest and loudest issues. And let's be honest, our calendars and task lists tend to keep us focused on the latest events and the loudest to-dos, rather than the habits and goals that enrich and enhance our lives. What's more, our productivity tools are siloed. I personally have always found myself frustrated by a fragmented planning experience where I couldn't see all the things vying for my time at the same time. So our team set out to create a tool that would help people manage their whole lives in one place and really empower them to bring the things that are truly important to the forefront of their planning process. We have a pretty grand vision to change the way people think about productivity and purposeful living, shifting the focus from getting things done to doing the right things. We think this product has applications in many markets, but looking at self-improvement alone, it's trending towards over $13 billion in the next 2 years. And if you look at the breakdown of this market, you'll notice that it's mostly content, books, seminars, speakers. We're inundated with all this information about how to be better and feel better and do better. But most people struggle with putting things into practice. It seems that there's often a disconnect between the things we want to do and what we actually end up doing. And we want to help bridge that divide. We have content in our product too, so users can find new ways to grow and improve, but then we take it a step further and help them actually find the time to get it done. We modeled a lot of our product after the Agile methodology that has taken the tech world by storm. Turns out building good habits is a lot like building software. And we think those same principles of experimentation and incremental improvement can be very powerful when applied to people's personal lives. We launched our MVP in January. We're live at goldenhour.com. Wish I had time for a demo, but gotta keep this short. As you're probably all well aware, this is a crowded space. And yet there is no dominant player out there or any consistency in how people manage their lives. While there's no shortage of productivity and personal development tools in the market, none that we've seen combine the realms of calendar, task management, and self-improvement. While we are building a general consumer product, we're really intent on making an impact with students first. Because being a student is hard. It's a balancing act across various classes, extracurriculars, and part-time jobs. Students are prone to poor lifestyle habits, they're easily distracted, and more addicted to social media and streaming services. But they like to try new things, and they're less entrenched in their ways when it comes to productivity habits. And perhaps the most potent reason that we chose this market is because there is incredible viral potential for our product to spread organically through campus networks and social media. Our business model is a freemium subscription service. Planning features are free for all users all the time, but for that personal coach in your pocket experience, you pay the premium. And we think there's no better time than now to launch. We'll be on the heels of a pandemic that has created a need for self-imposed structure and freed up more time for hobbies and self-care. This is a great opportunity for everyone to cultivate good productivity habits and infuse more personal development into their lives. And this is in line with a trend that we've seen over the past few years, this seismic shift towards health and wellness and the global consciousness movement. More than ever, people are seeking new ways to better themselves, and they're banding together to heal our communities and the planet. We believe that transforming the world begins with transforming ourselves. And this is we. The company was born out of a class project when I was an undergrad at Cornell, and I met Kevin and Dylan along the way. Both have founded other companies before. Dylan specifically built a gamified platform to help college students take action on climate change. And we're collectively on a mission to help people grow. We believe the key to success and lasting happiness is defining your values and discovering who you are, and then spending the rest of your life strengthening those values and shaping yourself into the best possible version of who you are. We hope to make that possible by offering a seamless planning experience that is infused with passion and purpose. And that's a wrap. Thank you.
Well, hello, Cardi. Thank you so much for that wonderful pitch. We'd love to throw it to any of the judges for questions they may have.
So Cardi, this is Jeff. Talk to me a little bit about your MVP. You had your competitive slide that showed all the boxes checked against the competition. What exactly have you guys, what's available today versus still in development?
Hi, sorry, I was muted. So what we have basically today is a tool that combines routines with tasks. So your daily experience, the tool is through the planning dashboard, and that's your one-stop shop for everything that should be on your radar as you're going about your day. It's broken out into this week, soon, and someday, and we're doing something different by forcing a complete buy date on every task to prevent things from just piling up in lists endlessly. Instead, they filter through our time box lists as they become increasingly relevant, which keeps our users focused on the most important and essential things. We've also got calendar integration in the pipeline, which would pull in events from Google and Outlook and allow you to drag and drop things in, essentially play Tetris with your schedule. As for the self-improvement aspect, we've curated a goal shopping experience that is designed to help you find new ways to grow and improve. So you can browse through different goals and activities and choose the ones you want to try out. And those feed directly into that planning dashboard, so they are accessible and available for you to actually make part of your daily life. And lastly, at the end of the week, we prompt a little check-in to encourage our users to review the progress that they've made, revisit any outstanding items, and reflect and reorient for the coming week. And as we continue to develop the product, we'll personalize those check-ins and offer tips and tricks to help support them along their self-improvement journey. And that's really what the North Star vision is, using AI and advanced technology to build out this intelligent planner plus personal coach in your pocket that nudges you at the right times with the right information.
Thank you.
Julie, I think your mic is turned off.
Sorry. I know that you haven't launched yet, but have you had a set of pilot users go through your experience yet?
Yes, yeah, we've had over 270 people try out the platform. They're mostly students, schools that we partnered with in the local Oregon area. And yeah, we haven't built out a lot of features that some people would consider very critical, like notifications, but we still see a retention rate of around 13%.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Karthi, so I'm curious how you arrived at this problem to solve. Seems like a combination of self-improvement and time management, which for me, I'm kind of having a hard time correlating if this is a problem that I have or need to solve. So I'm just trying to understand the pain point a little bit and how you got here.
Sure. So I have always been like a self-improvement junkie, consuming all this content, books and podcasts and articles. And I found that it was really hard to make that jump from paper to practice, because it seems that there's a disconnect between the things that we want to do and what we actually end up doing. And most people really operate from their calendars and to-do lists. But those are really focused on like the things that we have to do, not really the things that we want to do. And so I wanted to bring in a tool that would allow you to actually make time for these self-improvement activities. So if you're trying to work out more or spend more time with your family, or meditate, you can actually bring those things into focus within the context of the rest of your life. And also just for ease of operating, right? Like if everything is all in one place and you're able to make better trade-off decisions about how to spend your time, we think that you'll live a more vibrant and fulfilling life.
So I didn't get to see the product, but are you then essentially recommending things to do in my free time? Is that sort of the idea?
Yeah, I mean, we give you the autonomy to choose what you want. So you would browse through different goals. You might want to manage stress, and then we would have a bunch of different things that you could try out, like taking a bubble bath or meditation or calling a friend. And so you sort of pick and choose what you want to bring into your life. We help you find the time to do it. And then we prompt some sort of reflection so that we can figure out, is this thing working for you or not? And if it's not, let's try the next thing. So it's this constant cycle of iteration that is focused on personal development.
Thanks.
Thank you, Cardi. A quick question from the audience. As you mentioned, this is a very crowded space with a lot of people offering kind of different takes on a self-improvement. How do you plan to differentiate and really create critical mass?
Yeah, so I think part of it is our focus on the education space. While there are a lot of productivity tools out there, most are really aimed at the adult consumer or the enterprise. But students are really focused on, doing well in school. They're, dealing with their own set of challenges. They deal with peer pressure and parental pressure, but also just the pressure to figure out what they're going to do with the rest of their lives. And so we think there's a really unique opportunity to build content in there that helps students in the unique phase of life that they're in. Helping them learn the skills that they need to be successful in the job market, find scholarships, develop good study habits. And we think that entry point is going to allow us to establish a hold in the education space. And then, it also instantly gives us exposure to parents who very well might be the economic buyers in a consumer play. And so we think that combination of how we're entering the market, along with the vision that we have for this product and how it could be so much more. I am really gunning for mass adoption with this product and, in the process, radically improving the way people live their lives and ultimately altering the very fabric of society. We'll stop at nothing short of changing the world.
Wonderful. You'll give everyone their golden hour. Very exciting. Thank you so much, Cardi. And wonderful to hear from you. Again, a reminder to everyone watching, please vote, rate the startups on the Passport platform, and continue to comment. With that, we'll transition to our next pitch. And we'll be hearing from i2Chain, which is a cybersecurity company that focuses on securing information and identity on the blockchain. Looking forward to the pitch.
Good evening. My name is Ajay Jyotvani, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of i2Chain. i2Chain, as the name suggests, secure the two most valuable assets of an enterprise, identity and information, and delivers to our valued clients privacy-compliant clouds, folders, and files. Now imagine a mortgage banker that transacts your personally identifiable information, PII, with over a dozen entities and co-processors to underwrite a loan. The banker breaks the digital process by transacting your PII by sending the information or identifiable information by USPS, FedEx, or fax. The financial industry spends a staggering $14 billion on fax and USPS in today's day and age for reasons of security and compliance. The problem is 75% of the enterprises are unable to securely share sensitive information and comply with privacy regulation. Now, the problem is compounded by the fact that the pandemic is driving the largest work from home experiment, and the financial industry is bracing for service failures, especially as the loan volumes increase due to PPP and low interest rates and significant investments in in near to midterm on business continuity and enabling remote workforce. i2Chain is a succinct, easy to use SaaS application that enables enterprises to securely share and transact identity information with integrity and with confidence. The enterprise administrator or the content owner uses the i2Chain's patent pending zero-click technology to classify the cloud folder or file, and the i2Chain auto-classifies or encrypts the files and enforces policies on the cloud's folders or files. The users share the information using their normal tools like Slack, Gmail, Outlook, or what have you, and the recipients access only the chained or the secured information. The beauty is all the actions are recorded on an immutable ledger. Therefore, even if the mortgage banker is fired, goes rogue, or his remote device is hacked, the enterprise information is still secure and meets the compliance mandates. The proof of the pudding is we have signed a strategic alliance deal with a Forbes 100 digital company to drive $1 million plus of ARR in year one, and a much higher number, twice the number in year two. In addition, we're working closely with a large mortgage banker to deliver privacy compliant and traceable document handling, working with a Big Four audit firm to secure all reports downloaded from their M&A app, and working with a large entity to secure the information to national boundaries. Having said that, we are not alone, but we differentiate ourselves on 5 vectors. Vector number 1, our dashboards aggregate enterprise content classification and secures cloud folders and files. Vector 2, we are non-intrusive app inspired by Slack and Zoom. Vector 3, our information security is uniquely capable of geofencing information to facility, campus, or country. And Vector 4, we are perhaps the only company that has commercialized immutable ledgers to deliver evidence quality forensics or evidence quality audit logs. And the best part of i2Chain and the Vector 5 is the i2Chain's team. We are the #1 team of cybersecurity specialists and business domain experts to be able to deliver to our mission. Prior to i2Chain, I was the vice president of strategy and product management at IBM. I was fortunate to incubate digital workplace services, a new business segment, and deliver $1 billion of signings in under a year. And at this point of time, we are offering a strategic, a significant opportunity to our prospective investors as we open a new round to seek $3 million in order to attain $2 million of ARR in a short span of 12 months. We're also very delighted to announce that we recently concluded a $1.5 million seed round. Thank you, and I'm open to having your questions. Look forward.
Hello, Jay. Wonderful pitch we just heard about i2Chain. Looking forward to learning a little bit more about the company. Happy to throw it over to any of our judges with questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Alec.
Hey, AJ. Just curious, seems like a really tough space to articulate why you versus all the other possible solutions out there. Like I would imagine there's probably a lot of secure file stores, shareable file stores out there. So, you know, when selling to people, I mean, why would they even click on the email and open your email versus the other 30 emails are getting in the same product space?
First of all, thank you. That's a great question. We are not a collaboration tool. We are a cybersecurity tool, and we have commercialized a part of the blockchain technology called immutable ledger and zero trust. But why would someone use us? And I think that's a $1 billion question.
Not necessarily why they would use you, but how do you even get their attention?
Of course. And I think that's very well put. In 2013, Snowden was able to. He was an authenticated user, and he took documents from the most secure facility called the National Security Agency, and all he did was stick his USB drive, download a bunch of information, and fly out of the country. Now, I2 Chain prevents the next Snowden from happening. How about that? We not only prevent it, we proactively ensure that phishing attacks now can still preserve your content. Remember, the problem today in cybersecurity is not about stopping the hacks from an outsider. A phishing attack, the hacker stays in your enterprise, becomes one of your own for an average of 180 days plus. Now, how do you stop a hack from an insider is the biggest challenge, and that's what we have prevented. We are proactively ensuring that our security travels with the document. Once our cryptography gets super glued to an information artifact, whether it's in cloud or your computer, it remains secure.
And AJ, real quickly, I poked around your website a little bit. Talk to me a little bit about the origin of the technology. There's some references to the University of Memphis and licensing the technology, and give us some background history and your thoughts on, folks like us typically don't like licensed technology because it inhibits the sale at some point in time, but give us your thought process around the history and then your thoughts going forward and ultimately, exiting the company at some point.
Oh, sure. A lot of beautiful questions out there, Jeff. So first of all, I started this. This is not I must caution you, this is not a new idea. This is, I've been thinking about it for the last 6, 7, 8 years. We did a large program to secure the content that could stream to an end user for a very large media company, and we brought in 17 vendors and $1 billion. And the problem is that cybersecurity today is very technology siloed. So I will secure data center, database, endpoint, bring in DLPs, DRM, and it's just networks and so on and so forth. It's just very. And our approach is very clearly, we work with Thomson Reuters, where their claim to fame is that they are able to securely distribute media across their entire supply chain, and at no point of time that either an image or a video or a content should be manipulated. And they put in big dollars to be able to do it. So really, that's how the idea, if you will, came across. Now, we want to be able to secure the two most valuable assets of an enterprise: identity and information. For us to be able to do that, identity is a very critical path of it. And while we are securing information through its life cycle, and we own the patent and it's our patents, we had to buy a patent from University of Memphis. And that's what you saw us. So we have exclusive rights to this University of Memphis patent that allows us to slice and dice identity authentication by way of behavior and operational metrics. And let me give you an example. If you are wearing a mask today, a face recognition has no meaning. How can you do a face recognition? So my ML algorithm automatically switches to a different way of dual factor authentication. So where duo fails, where everybody else fails, I still succeed in being able to. If you're 30,000 feet in an airplane, how do I send you a SMS? It's not happening. So that's the patent that we have acquired exclusively from University of Memphis. Now, we also did participate and work very closely with University of California, where Professor Hamid Sadapur is helping us future-proof the application. And there, the essence is that we are working on a technology called as information theoretic security, specifically to future-proof. And your fourth and last question is, how do I exit? Well, at this point of time, we are looking at, the way I call it as $1 million opportunities. We have closed $1 million deal. Hopefully, if things go well, and I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, like a chain, where we will close another $1 million or $3 million deal in the next 45 to 90 days. I want to just keep it $3 million of backlog or order bookings, if you will. The reason that large enterprises are banking on a technology like ours is because we provide a dimension which has been radically different than what has been done previously. Now, finally, how do we exit? We believe that at this point of time, our multiplier still is a pretty attractive multiplier. Our first gate is when we will reach around 10 million of ARR, which is in the next two and a half years, 2 years. And by end of 2021 is when we will start thinking, when we reach a $10 million ARR, what do we need to go to a next round? And do we exit at that point of time, or do we take the company to a much greater heights?
Thank you.
Any question on your side, Julia?
Yeah, could you talk a little bit more about traction? You said $1 million in sales from one customer. Can you talk a little bit about where you are right now and what it's going to look like over the next year?
Yeah, we're working on 3 pilots, 3 very large pilots. If we're working on several pilots, we're working on 3 very large pilots. One with a large bank on the East Coast in Boston, where they are trying us out for both their consumer and commercial banks. We are working on work for delivering privacy compliant cloud folders and files, which is our key objective. We built our zero-click technology at the back of this particular bank. We are working with a very large entity to be able to, as they move to cloud, their biggest challenge is they don't want the information to go outside the nation's boundary. So we are bringing in, co-developing, if you will, a capability called geofencing of information. Again, this is by far the first one. I've never heard of it in the past. My research has told me that there's no one else that does it today. But we will geofence the information that as soon as someone accesses the information outside the geographical boundary of a nation, that information is no longer accessible, or it automatically turns itself off, if you will. And the third large project that we are currently working on is with a big 4 firm, where they have an M&A app, and they have a very simple use case for us, that as soon as a report gets downloaded from this M&A app, whoever downloads it, it should be in just an I2C file, which is our I2 chain file, so that it can be it is secure and traceable through its life cycle.
Thank you so much, Ajay. With that, I want to remind all of our audience members to vote and comment, and we'll keep the conversation going and keep things moving and transition into our next pitch. But thank you again, Ajay. So
thank you, everybody.
Pitch, we have the opportunity to hear from the company Pickles, which is a collaborative online coloring and engagement app targeted to children in hospitals or other like lockdown or secured medical situations. We're excited to welcome Pickles.
Hi, my name is Chris Bent, and I'm the founder of Pickles. I'm originally from Boston, but I live here in Montreal, where I am starting the company. And it is a pleasure to be with all of you this evening for the GSV pitch. I wanted to start off talking about Pickles, where the journey started at the first corporate sales job and the only one that I ever got. Previously, I had always been very entrepreneurial, and I didn't realize it, but that was scratching my creative itch. And it wasn't until I was told how many people to call, how many meetings to book, yada, 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 that I felt all creative expression leave from my life. And I started yearning for this because I didn't feel human anymore. And so instead of trying to figure out how to paint and not be an artist, I decided to create a platform for everyone else who felt like they weren't living up to their creative potential. It began as a collaborative coloring book, where instead of one person spending an hour trying to make a painting, 100 people would spend 1 minute doing 1/100th of it and be able to collectively create this piece that didn't put anyone on the spot and created this art in a matter of minutes instead of hours. But after we got it out there, we realized this platform had other potential. One of them was a visual question and answer tool so that we could ask people, how are you feeling? And then they could draw how they're feeling instead of an ABC 1, 2, 3 kind of questionnaire. We even use it for data visualization, where in this case, I asked people, are you Republicans or Democrats? Charged topic, but this was a way of approaching it and letting everyone play into the conversation without putting anyone on the spot. Now, before the coronavirus, we were doing lots of in-person events. One of my favorites was this one on the wall of a metro station in Montreal, where everyone walking by could just take out their cell phones, put in a code, and start drawing in this digital graffiti activation that allowed for everyone to express their feelings in public. It was a big hit, and it was a great way of learning about the citizens of Montreal. We've also been used in schools. This one is in the University of French Polynesia in Tahiti, all in the Pacific Ocean. And it's being used to capture data during online events now that coronavirus has moved everyone's experiences into these square digital world that we live in. You can ask questions like, where are you from? Or just draw how you feel or what you look like. You can have more of a casual way of interacting with your team in these social drawing activations. And the resulting images can be put together to uncover the sentiment of a crowd, where every little picture reveals the big picture and gives people a more human way of expressing themselves. So we are currently a SaaS company selling subscriptions for $49 per month for up to 100 users. And then above that, we get into custom pricing, which is exactly what the meetings and events industry is looking like. And Pickles is a great platform for engagement, because whether it was an in-person meeting or a virtual meeting, if you're not being engaged, you're missing the point of the meeting. So we're being used as icebreakers, as audience polling solutions, and as a virtual team building tool to keep people feeling connected and creative during these difficult times. Thank you.
And now we have Chris Bent from the Pickles team here. We'd love to learn a little bit more about the company and the application, and we'll throw it to any of our judges for questions.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Chris, this is Jeff. Talk to me a little bit about your go-to-market. I mean, you know, having a walk-by billboard and have people contribute is one way of doing it, of course, but how do you build scale and what's your go-to-market look like?
Yeah, so just this week on Monday, I actually did a webinar for 1,200 people in the authentic way of expressing yourself. And so that's kind of the future that I see it, is really to get into the data space and be able to really identify feelings, sentiments, ideas in these populations of employees.
Very exciting and such a cool vision, such a cool vision for the future. I just feel bad for anyone who has to look at my stick figure drawings because I've not yet figured it out. But thank you, thank you so much, Chris, for sharing your vision for Pickles with us. With that, we're going to keep the conversation going and transition to our next pitch. For everyone who's paying attention at home, you'll hear a reminder again from me to vote and comment. We're getting towards the end here with just 3 more pitches to go, and so really looking forward to seeing everyone's votes and decisions. And with that, we'd love to introduce Ripen, which is a platform that connects student talent in higher education and helps enterprise kind of identify and engage with that talent. It enables anyone to work with universities and college students on real projects that support their business needs. Looking forward to seeing Ripen.
Hi, my name is Dana Stevenson, co-founder and CEO of Ripen. Ripen is the world's leading experiential learning marketplace that enables higher ed institutions to deliver high-impact project-based learning at scale. Students gain real-world experience, employers find talent, and make better hiring decisions. You see, since the year 2000, the share of students listing employment or income as the #1 motivator for choosing to go to post-secondary has risen from 50% to 90%. Yet nearly one half of college grads are underemployed. What's worse is that we know now if students start their careers underemployed, they're more likely to stay underemployed 5 or even 10 years later. What's even more clear is that the future of work is changing more rapidly than ever before, and digital disruption requires graduates to demonstrate a different skill set. As industry continues to evolve faster and faster, many studies are showing a widening of the skills gap. Yet a recent study by Gallup shows that the top 2 indicators leading to workplace success were worked on a long-term project that took several classes to complete and used what they were learning about to develop solutions to real-world problems in their community and around the world. Now, traditional one-on-one internship placements are great, but they're very expensive to run and will never scale to reach the demand of the 21st century. Moving work-based learning programs online removes geographical barriers, unlocking a wide variety of experiences that would not normally be available to students in their own backyard. Unbundling short-term, very skill-specific projects from traditional internships offers both students and employers more flexible, customizable options to fit within their busy schedules and meet their unique needs. Lastly, group-based projects provide an opportunity for students to develop human skills like collaboration, communication that are often the highest in demand from employers. This also enables employers to provide 10 to 100 times the number of student experiences compared to the traditional internship programs. Introducing Ripen. So Ripen is the world's leading experiential learning marketplace for companies to connect with post-secondary schools to collaborate with emerging talent on short-term projects. Since 2016, we've grown to over 220 higher ed institutions with a network of over 10,000 employers. But what we're most proud of here at Ripen is that since we started, over 47,000 students have now gained access to real-world learning opportunities. So to enable project-based learning at scale in a very time-efficient, cost-effective way, we've focused our energy on developing the functionality and workflows to support the following 4 steps that are crucial to high-quality experiential learning process: design, matchmaking, management, and assessment. Unlike other platforms in the micro-experiential learning space that offer closed, standalone systems, Ripen's growth strategy, similar and complementary to Handshakes, is to harness the power of network effects from an open and shared marketplace ecosystem, generating regional flywheels that will soon leave our competition behind. We've experienced 3x growth in ARR from 2017 to 2019. We expect to maintain 2x growth in ARR despite COVID-19, reaching close to 3.3 million in ARR by the end of this year. Given the explosive growth we've experienced during COVID and the many signals that Ripen's offering aligns well with higher ed's need to focus on student ROI and employability in a post-COVID world, we're raising $7.5 million to capitalize on this opportunity to become the leader in project-based experiential learning globally. Thank you.
Have you here, Dana, and excited to learn more about Ripen. I'll throw it over to the judges for any questions they may have about the company.
Great. Hi, Dana. Can you talk a little bit about signing up companies and what that looks like, and how much handholding they need to create those projects? I'd love to hear about that side of the marketplace.
Sure. Yeah. So we actually we do have large enterprise clients like IBM, Walmart, but most of our business clients are actually SMEs. About 80% of them are SMEs, 50 employees or less. And essentially, what we do is we primarily work with a direct sales outreach program. We connect with them, we educate them. Most of them don't really understand that project-based learning exists, and they can get projects done by students. Where the technology really comes in is the design phase. So we have the world's largest template library of experiential learning. Originally, we built those templates, but now because we have an open ecosystem, it's become a completely shared resource. So companies can sign on to our platform. They can see what other companies are posting in terms of projects, how that's benefiting them. They can take those same project templates, duplicate them, adapt them for their own needs, and launch them. And they can connect to our network of 220 schools.
Thank you.
Hey, Dana, I'm just curious, what is a school worth to you in terms of value when you sign them up? Or I'm not sure if that's the revenue driver or if it's the enterprise. I'm curious to hear how you make money, and then how you think about the growth of your, of the main driver of your business.
Absolutely. So Ripen is always educator driven first. That's really how the platform works. When we first enter a new market, we first bring on the post-secondary institutions. They launch their courses on the platform that market it out to employers. 75% of our ARR comes from the academic side. Those are our long-term sticky clients that just keep expanding year over year over year as they add more and more students who are getting experiential learning from their courses. And we also charge the business side. So businesses also make up a portion of our revenue, so 25% right now. These are small contracts. So it's a subscription model, about $1,000 a year is the first entry point. They can upgrade to $2,500 a year. Our enterprise clients will typically pay anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 a year, and that's more for a nationwide campus recruitment plan.
What does a university pay?
Universities pay based on full-time. It's based on the number of FTEs, or they can choose a per student experience model. These range anywhere from $20,000 to $120,000 a year.
Any other questions from our judges? Okay, one question we had from the audience, and this may be a very obvious one, Dana, but how has COVID and kind of the lockdown and isolation and kind of rethinking of the campus that's been going on over the past couple months impacted Ripen, and what are you seeing around engagement and adoption?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because it's been a very exciting couple months for us. So traditionally, our core offering is empowering educators, professors to transform their courses into experiential courses, where they're embedding industry projects directly in the course curriculum. Obviously, when COVID-19 came out, most schools were very focused on the academic side on continuity plans, bringing everything online. We quickly, actually, many of our customers reached out to us because we're typically we've been their remote project-based work experience partner for many years now. And they were, as many people have probably seen, 30 to 60% of internships have been canceled this year. Students are still expecting experiences. Schools are still wanting to deliver real world experience, which is part of the promise of employability to students. So we actually launched a new offering with our platform this year called virtual internships, virtual project-based internships. It's not a big departure from where we are today. It still runs the same way, but now we work with careers. We also now can have a new entrant point into schools with the career services. So career services are launching. We've done so far over 7,000 student experiences through virtual project-based internships just this summer alone, since we launched it about 2 months ago. And we brought on 50 new schools through that new model.
Very exciting. That sounds like a lot of really rapid growth, but also not really surprising. So it's great to hear some more about Ripen, and amazing the work that you're doing to keep continuity and keep talent connected with opportunity in this time. I'll give one last opportunity for any judge questions, and then we'll transition on to the next pitch. Well, perfect. Again, Dana, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be transitioning now into our second to last pitch. as we get ready to kind of wrap this up, it's a real pleasure to invite Vimly. Vimly is a command center that centralizes all of the non-coding related work of a business into one place. And it brings all your applications and all of your desktop tools and conversations into a smart feed for easier control. Looking forward to learning more about Vimly.
This is Emna, CEO and co-founder of Vimly. We are reinventing the future of productivity by augmenting people. We do that by streamlining all of the craziness of their work apps into one smart interface. But before I tell you how we do that, I want to tell you a little story about the evolution of communication. 20 years ago, communication used to happen via one main channel, email. Information was stored in few systems. Of course, that had a lot of issues like long trail communication and silo effects, just to name a few. This is why, in the past few years, we've seen an explosion of collaboration apps in the workplace that solved for that problem, but created a much bigger one, heavy context switching. It's causing us today to be interrupted every 11 minutes on average, and it takes us 23 minutes and 15 seconds to focus again. This is costing companies 40% of their labor and costing the US economy $588 billion a year. This is why we built Vimly, the one desktop app that brings all of your apps in one place with a smart inbox of all your conversations on top of them. Developers today are the ones who suffer the most from distractions. As you can see on this graph, a simple 5-minute interruption from a manager through a couple of notifications can cause them to lose up to 60 minutes to get back into focus. John, for instance, is a software engineer in a 200-people remote company. John uses Slack, Jira, GitHub, Zeppelin, Figma, Confluence, Google Docs, and few other apps to get his job done every day. He's interrupted all the time by them. That's why he never can get anything done during the day and end up working overnight and over the weekend to catch up on his work. With Vimly, we get rid of notifications for John and instead bring all his apps in one place where he can easily access them and give him a smart inbox that prioritizes all of his communication, pointing him to what needs his attention first. Then we make it easy and faster for him to search for information from one interface and make it simple to transfer information from one system to another. We also give John metrics on how he's using his time across all these apps and how much time he spent being focused versus in collaboration mode. We then aggregate and anonymize that data and give it to his managers so they can see anonymously the health of their teams and improve their productivity thanks to our insights. This market today is gigantic. The engineering market in the US alone is at $1 billion. As we expand to all the knowledge workers worldwide, we're talking about an addressable market of over $250 billion. In the current worldwide situation, this market grew even more because we were looking at remote coming 5 to 10 years from now as a standard. But all of a sudden, it became the norm today. So having a tool like Vimly is more essential than ever. This is why we're not the only ones trying to solve for this. However, the way we differentiate from our competition today is by focusing only on one persona, the developer, and putting all our time in prioritizing the communication for them so they spend their time coding. In our research, we were able to showcase 30% of increase in productivity for our pilot customers. And today, we have over $300,000 worth of contracts in our pipeline, along with over 800 people on our wait list that came with $0 marketing. Behind this project, there's an incredible team of co-founders. My CTO brings over 12 years of experience of building scalable enterprise software across North America, specializing in search and automation. I bring over 10 years of experience in process optimization, communication, and launching startups. It doesn't hurt that we have a stellar team of advisors surrounding us from HubSpot, Google Venture, Lux Capital, and unified search enterprise companies. So together, we want to revolutionize the way people work. Thank you.
Might get, and then email is sort of a different use case. It seems like different companies have sort of structured their communication in different ways with different channels serving different purposes. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, very good question. So we're not here to replace these apps. So we keep those flows as they are. We don't interrupt that or change it for the teams. This is an individual user app, so it doesn't hurt like the collaborative process around.
Mhm.
The way you can picture it is when you open your laptop today, you're opening gazillion tabs, multiple apps. So scientifically, your cortisol level is up, your stress is up, and you're already not focused by default. So for us, all we're doing is we're saying, okay, open one system, right? And you access all your apps still. We're not touching that. And we're going to make it easier for you to be able to shut down notifications and go into focus mode versus not. And when you're in focus mode, when you come back, you have a prioritized feed of your conversation across your apps. And so we use a combination of things to prioritize, like some of our own algorithms, like to define what's important, what's not, but also manual input from the user. And eventually, based on personalization of their behavior, we make that better and better over time. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Amna. I like that you pick market to focus on instead of try to just be general to everyone. So I'm kind of curious with regards to the engineering department. I didn't quite understand. You had a backup. I guess you had a backlog of folks that wanted to use your product.
Okay, Perry, you cut off a little bit in the beginning.
Yeah. So I'm curious. You mentioned you had a backlog of people that want to use your product.
Yeah.
Are you still in beta or something? Or are you shipping?
Yeah, so we do VIP cohorts, so we're not releasing to everybody yet because we really are iterating and learning. So we don't give access to everyone. We qualify who is a fit for us today. So that's why we're hyper focused on the developer persona, but also the developer persona that uses a certain suite of apps as well. So for us, that's how we think we can really better deliver value on something.
What's your go-to-market? Is this? It doesn't seem like a viral product necessarily to me. So are you assuming that?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Are you assuming people just adopt it, or are you trying to push corporate sales?
It's a hybrid strategy. So we market to the developer and we sell to the managers. And what I mean by that, for us from day one, before we even had the product, we built really a strong community around us of developers who suffer from this pain. So we get to them through different ways, our blog, podcast, everything. So for us, we want them, they test certain pieces of the app to really see the value of it. But then we go to the manager because this is like a unified system. So it's permission heavy. So, and the bigger the company, the bigger the pain. So for us, it's an enterprise product. It's not really a self-serve in the classical model of it. But there is a virality effect for sure, because we embed into their existing system, right? So they're using Slack, they're using Jira, so we are on all their marketplaces. And then by using us, they create a network effect and a virality. If someone uses us in an organization, another person will see it and then they will get onboarded. And that creates like a snowball effect. So.
Got it. And so what's the price per user? And then what do you think it's going to cost you to sell to that enterprise?
Yeah. So for us, we start with a basic at $20 per user per month. So for a mid-sized company, we're looking at an ACV of $50K a year. And of course, that grows as we go larger and larger enterprise.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And how quickly does it set up? What's the integration look like? It seems pretty lightweight. Can you just give a quick overview?
Yes, the setup is very easy. As long as you're the admin in the organization. If you're not an admin, right, that's why, like we said, we are hybrid, then you're going to be blocked on certain integrations like Jira, for instance, because Jira is very well protected. That's why for us, we don't release all integration for the open model for the developers to test it out. But as we go through the sale, then literally it takes 5 minutes to set us up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A quick question, Emna, from the audience. You mentioned these pilot customers. Are these paying pilots that you've secured at this point?
We had a combination. So we had unpaid when we were the goal was to get the ROI aspect, especially that we did not have the means to automate that. And we also charged as well. So we had a combination.
Wonderful. Well, Emna, thank you so much for sharing some more about Vimly. It's great to see you back here pitching at a GSV Labs pitch night, and we really enjoyed the opportunity. With that, we'll be moving into our final pitch, and I want to give everyone a reminder that vote, score. You'll have the opportunity to submit your votes, and we'll be awarding an audience choice, kind of audience participation award board shortly after the final pitch. And with that, we will last pitch of the night. It's my pleasure to welcome ZenSpace, which offers an on-demand, state-of-the-art, tech-enabled workspaces to make everyone be able to have the luxuries of the office while working from home or working remotely in different settings.
Hello everyone, my name is Mayank Agarwal. I'm the founder and CEO of ZenSpace Inc. And we are the creators of SmartPod. It's a two-seater workspace, a modular workspace which is IoT enabled and reservable through a mobile app which you can download from App Store, just like Uber rideshare. ZenSpace is a workspace solution company, and for different markets and different needs, we have different solutions. For open layouts in offices and co-working spaces and coffee shops, we offer a meeting pod solution, which actually comes in 4 different sizes, from 1-seater to 6-seaters, and they are sold under our exclusive brand of Alcove.works. We are a technology company, and we offer multiple technology solutions, including cloud-based workspace listing and monetization platform, mobile apps and web-based apps and plugins for different softwares, as well as a smart meeting room kit for productive and workspaces, remote monitoring, and enterprise-grade connectivity. We also offer a 500 square feet plus turnkey co-working and business lounge solution for larger open spaces like shopping malls, airports, residential complexes, and so on and so forth. The way we work is changing. I won't describe something which you read on a daily basis, but the future of work would look something as I have represented in the right-hand side. It would be a much more balanced workspaces. So people will not go to dedicated offices as much as they used to. Work from home will continue to be at a very high level. But then there would also be an unprecedented rise of third spaces, to be away from distractions of home and to be away and to find more productivity anytime, any place. And third spaces are defined as co-working spaces, coffee shops, libraries, and any other place which is not your home or not your dedicated office. And that's the market that ZenSpace actually addresses. So we solve problems for modularity of workspaces and other technology-related solutions for offices. For third spaces, we offer a turnkey technology-enabled workspace solution as well. And then homes, where we are looking to launch a low-cost workspace solution for homes as well. In general, ZenSpace solutions go beyond remote workers, and we also have solutions for business travelers and event attendees. We are a B2B2C company, and our workspace solutions are targeted towards enterprises for travel and hospitality businesses like airlines, airports, hotels, for that matter, and then also for events and convention centers, through which we service the needs for enterprises, remote workers, freelancers, business travelers, and event attendees. Our initial pilots, we launched, by the way, for the first time in Q4 of last year, December of last year, of 2019, our latest products. And we started our pilot engagements with Las Vegas Convention Center, Venetian Resort in Las Vegas, as well as Hyatt Regency in Santa Clara in February of 2020. Given the big shift coming up in travel and event industry, we are pivoting our focus towards solutions targeted towards remote workers. Hence, San Francisco Bay Area, which is the hub of technology companies and the biggest transformation in this country is happening in the city, is where we will be focusing on as well. We are working with some of the largest retail shopping mall operators in the city right now, and also getting into discussions with some of the residential complexes. At this juncture, we are trying to raise our extended seed round. So far, we have raised $1.7 million in debt and equity. And we are trying to raise $1 million at $9 million valuation cap, interest rate of 4%, and maturity of 36 months. We plan to use these funds to expand across San Francisco Bay Area. Just give me a second. San Francisco Bay Area and commercial buildings, shopping malls, office buildings, and multifamily common areas. And also looking at bringing our manufacturing and engineering capabilities closer to the US. That's my team. Myself, Ted Simon, and Kim Hoinstrom, who are part of the executive team, Raghu and Jim, who are the board members. With that, I would like to open it up for Q&A. Thank you so much for listening to my pitch, and I hope to be able to answer most of your questions.
And welcome, Mayank. Apologies that you're having issues with your video, so we'll just be doing audio only for your Q&A session, but really excited to learn some more about ZenSpace, and I'm going to turn it over to our judges for any questions that they might have.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, Mayank, it's Perry. I'm just curious. It seems like, at least for the short term, there's a big supply and demand issue. So I'm kind of curious, how do you think about bridging through that process or dealing with that problem, which I imagine sort of is your probably most pressing issue for the company?
So when you say supply and demand, are you referring to the need for such spaces?
Well, I'm assuming that that commercial and retail space is going to be readily available. And the need, like, we're all working from home, so my presumption is the need to actually work in the office is going to go down as well.
Yeah, so what we are not looking to address. I don't think any problem can be solved in the next 90 days. So anyone trying to solve a problem for next 90 days, or as the pandemic actually wears out itself, that's something which I'm not necessarily. I see the point. So if this pandemic continues for a long time, our business definitely carries a very big inherent risk, as does the world does. But in general, the flexible spaces are on rise. Today, I had a phenomenal call with a company, and we are closing a deal with one of the largest shopping malls in the San Francisco Bay Area, as well as one of the airports in California as well. Can't go too much into detail right away, but hopefully within a week or two, I will be able to make some announcements. And they want to create safe zones in their open spaces. So ZenSpace, and they want to work with us to create these, like in airport, the use case that they want to implement is that this is not only a business lounge or workspace amenity, this is also a safe zone where I can stay safe and save myself if I have to spend 3 hours or 4 hours at an airport, instead of actually just being sitting and waiting and being around so many people. Can I be in the safe zone? So the marketability of this product has different aspects, how you use it. So of course, the same problem which exists in Uber, which is sharing the time with somebody else, sharing the car with somebody else, has an inherent problem. In our case, we are of course taking some measures. For instance, instead of doing hourly reservations, we are only allowing daily reservations, for instance, right? Sanitization protocols we are a B2B2C company, so we are working with our partners, whoever they are, to ensure that the protocols are set for sanitization in the way things should be. So anyways, so to your point, yes, our market is shifting. So event and convention industry was a large industry which we are focusing on until now, and Las Vegas was a huge focus for us. And we don't believe that market will come back anytime soon in a very aggressive way. So we are also pivoting in that respect. So of course, we are focusing a lot more on the third spaces nearby, but we are seeing a rise of flexible spaces demand quite already. So residential complexes, for instance, all of these people are actually looking at building co-working spaces in multi-family apartment complexes, so they can offer a turnkey workspace solution for people who are having distractions in their apartments. So the use cases are changing, but the market is, and of course there is definitely a short-term bump or short-term churn that we are going through as well. So we definitely have to be very careful on next few months of our execution which we are taking measures to cut down costs. I don't know if I could answer your question properly, Perry, but
Yeah, I mean, if you can send one to my house tomorrow, that'd be great. I got 3 kids, 2 dogs, and a chatty wife. But quick question for more basics. I mean, take an average unit, probably a 4-person unit. What's the cost? What's your profit margin on a rental basis? What's all that look like from just a pure P&L perspective?
Yeah, so from a manufacturing and delivering to the customer, our cost is for a 4-person or 6-person unit is actually around $10,000. That's our cost. It includes IoT, sensors, electronics, Wi-Fi, the hardware, everything, all inclusive. And of course, that's not our retail price. I mean, if somebody wants to buy, then we have a different retail price, and we offer 2 different business models. Either we break even on the hardware and we take part in the revenue share, or we take 100% of the revenue up front, and then all the revenue is retained by the business owner whether it is a shopping mall. So we normally operate at 30 to 40% gross margin as our target.
Okay, thank you.
I guess coming back to the COVID question, I'm just curious, are there sort of any other shifts that you're thinking about making in terms of what you're focused on, or where there might be new opportunities that open up, and not in the next 90 days, but looking over the next 2 years in terms of likely shifts that might happen in terms of how people live and work?
Yeah, so when I started this company 2.5 years ago, my idea was so that I was in San Francisco, for 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening. So that shift is automatically happening due to COVID-19. Would people continue to work from home? I don't believe. I can't work from home, and I believe the audience here may concur to. You can work from home so the flexibility of work will stay, and hence people will require the productivity anytime, any place. I want my productivity, while I'm vacationing at Hawaii, while I'm at a shopping mall. So the need activity that how can I connect with my software tools like Zoom and Skype wherever I am without worrying about how do I do that is the problem, is an overarching problem that we want to solve. So can we solve it with $1 billion job than what we are doing? We may do with $1 million, but definitely it's a start, and we are seeing different opportunities than we saw before COVID-19. That's also a fact. Hence the pivot, and hence we are not doing a Series A yet. We will do a Series A next year. So that's why the extended seed round at this point.
Thank you.
A quick question from the audience. Are you looking at having mobile units that are easy to move around and position in different places, maybe like construction sites or at mobile events?
Oh, absolutely. All our units are mobile. And when I say mobile, they don't have Tesla-style automation built in, but they're all can be lifted on a pallet jack. You can actually put it on a forklift. They are on wheels, so you can relocate. So the entire business lounge, the concept which I was talking about, the whole idea is providing 100% flexibility. Is instant. You don't require any construction, no permits required. You can set it up in no time, and it's self-operated and managed through software. Right, so IoT and software and sensors. So if you combine all of this, we probably are the only company which can offer a turnkey co-working space, which can expand, contract, move from one location to another as things progress. So of course, all the use cases the audience described can be done.
Thank you so much, and want to thank you again, Mayank, for the pitch and for answering all these questions. With that is the last of our startup pitches, and a great group of early stage founders kind of sharing different perspective and lenses on this, remote work and work from home environment that we're all now living in. And we want to thank them all again, as well as thank our judges for participating tonight. I want to give a reminder to the audience that now is the time to submit all your votes, make any final comments, and get your votes in there. As you're submitting, you can also choose to connect with the founders if you want to engage with any of them and follow up after this event. And so please take full advantage of kind of the opportunities to connect and share your perspective that exist on Passport right now. But before we wrap this all up, I want to give a special shout out to, again, our partner from Layton, who made all of this possible and helped support kind of these virtual pitch nights. And so we're going to bring them in for a couple words before we get the final announcement. Pleasure to welcome Maggie Crowley from the Layton team.
Hi guys, thanks for having me. An awesome job everybody. It was so nice. And good job. So I work for a company called Layton, and we are part of the Perks program. We help companies put together their research and development tax credit. And if you guys don't know what the R&D tax credit is, it rewards companies for creating new products and technology and innovative solutions, just like all of you in GSV are doing. And what it means to you guys financially is that it will either offset your income tax liability if you have it, or if not, don't worry, there's something for you. It will also offset your payroll tax liability. And there are some additional partnerships within GSV Perks that will allow you to realize that benefit in the immediate. So given the financial climate that COVID has put so many businesses in, whether you are early stage or well established, I think that everyone can use every dollar they can get their hands on at this time. So we would love to have a conversation with you guys and see if we can help put some money back in your business so you can continue growing even during these strange times. So my contact information, I think, will be distributed, but we're all over GSV Perks Passport, so please check us out. And I hope to hear from many of you soon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Maggie. And again, a special thanks to Layton and the Layton team for making tonight possible. And as she mentioned, please check them out in the Perks program. It's an amazing way to access, best in class technology tools and services, as well as some of the top professional service partners out there in the market, like the Layton team. So, again, thanks to everyone for participating. Thanks to our judges. We're now going to take about 2 minutes and tally up all of the scores, both the judging scores as well as the audience participation scores. If you haven't voted yet, you have about 5 seconds before the time is up. And I'll be back in just one moment to announce the winners. And hello, everyone. Thank you for sticking around with us as we finished up all of the calculations and adding up all the various judging and audience scores. We're really excited now to announce our both audience choice winner as well as our grand prize winner. But before we do that, I just want to highlight one other opportunity inside the GSV Labs network. We are the national organizers of the Entrepreneurship World Cup, one of the world's largest startup competitions, attracting hundreds of thousands of early stage and growth applicants from all over the world, over 100 countries, all competing for millions of dollars in cash prizes and even more opportunity and access and relationships. And we're running the US and Canadian competition, and we suggest all of you to go and apply. You can apply at entrepreneurshipworldcup.com, create your application, and join what will soon be one of the largest communities of impactful and breakthrough startups anywhere in the world. But with that, no further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to announce the winners of tonight's first virtual pitch and place night. We'll start with the Audience Choice Award winner, and then we'll move on to the grand prize. So it's my pleasure to announce that the Audience Choice Award winner tonight is BridgeFi. Congratulations to the BridgeFi team, an absolutely amazing pitch and incredible technology that's going to be helping people stay connected and application developers and distributors always to add value, even when there's not connectivity. And so again, congratulations to the BridgeFi team. Last but not least, certainly we have our grand prize winner tonight. And I'm excited to share that the winner of tonight's grand prize, which is $2,000 cash prize, as well as 2-year free membership at GSV Labs, is Ripen. Incredible congratulations to the Ripen team. Such an amazing technology as campuses and traditional enterprises are being disrupted. We're really excited to see the growth that you've experienced over the past couple months and see what you're going to be doing over the next couple months. So again, from myself, the entire GSV Labs team, and I'm sure everyone in the audience, a huge congratulations to Ripen for taking this victory. With that, we are done with the first pitch in place. Again, I want to thank all of you for coming out and spending time with us here tonight. This video is going to be available to be rewatched at any point, either in the Passport platform or on YouTube. And we'd love your comments and feedbacks as these virtual pitch and place nights are going to be becoming more and more of a habit of ours as we really go and try and drive connectivity and engagement in this less connected world. So thank you again, and it's been a pleasure spending the evening with you all.